August 10th meeting of the Transportation Committee. I'm its chair, Bill Rosendahl, and I'm joined right now by Paul Koretz. And I'm expecting, well, we'll see what I'm expecting. They'll come in when they come in. Okay. I want to wait one more second for a quorum before we officially start. We got the young lady. First one for three?
Yes, that's the only one.
Okay. Okay, we'll start with our general public comment card by Wayne. I'm sorry, sir, I can't read that last name. S-P-I-N something or another?
Yeah.
Oh, it's you.
It's me.
Come on up.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Oh, good afternoon, yeah. It'll be almost nighttime.
Your name for the record.
Wayne Spendler. Okay, we basically, in the city, there's some things happening with transportation. The one is the DASH program. I noticed the fees are going to be going, or they already went up to a half a dollar. It was 25 cents, went up to 35 cents, and then it's a half a dollar. And these are these little DASH buses that you take around Chinatown, and these are small trips that we take around when we park and we get around the city. It's increased double just in the last 6 months on these rate increases. And then I see there's additional new programs where they're going to be giving these contracts for DASH service. I would say that because a lot of these people are fixed income, retired, a lot of them live in Chinatown, but they also get around the city at 25 cents a trip. It creates a lot of economic opportunity for a lot of the businesses in the area. As a condition of these new contracts for DASH, the fee should be restored to 25 cents a trip. And I think that's really the right thing to do rather than make it half a dollar, because half a dollar versus 25 cents a trip doesn't sound like a lot of money, but it is. It really adds up. And when it was 25 cents, you used to see people, particularly in the lunch crowd, everywhere. Since it's been going up, you see the buses in that time less filled. So a lot of the small businesses, especially people that have breakfast, lunch in the downtown area, benefit greatly overall, including the sales tax generated from economic activity and tourism, to have that 25-cent fee restored. And I think that could be done. It's the right thing to do. And that's just the way I think it should be done. 50 cents a trip, I think, is very excessive. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments on that. We need a third one before we're going to act on any particular items here. What I'd like to do is, well, just item number one.
Item number one is communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Ms. Maria Armaduin to the Board of Tax Cap Commissioners.
And she's not here in the room, folks, so we're going to just send this. Is she here? No. We're going to send this directly to the council for action. When will that go before the council?
John White, City Clerk. I'll check with the nominee to see when she's available to attend council. It'll have to be next week, either Tuesday or Wednesday.
Very good.
Are you recommending approval of the nomination?
Well, we really haven't had a discussion here, so without approval, I
Okay.
just want to recommend that the council have an interaction with her.
Okay. Thank you.
And let's hope we have all the data and background material and everything else in her, which wasn't there today for one of the potential.
That's right. Okay.
That's item number one. I'd love to see a couple of more come up the stairs that were down in closed session with me, so we could move forward with item 2, 3, 4, and 5, but we'll just hold that because they're on consent. But there's a suggestion for item number 8 to continue it to the next meeting, but we have 3 speaking cards on item number 8. And so I'd like to hear your comments on item number 8, but it's a suggestion that we continue the item to the next meeting before action is taken. So So if Dennis Hinsman wants to come up, Alex Lance wants to come up, and Wayne again, come on up. And this is going to be on item number 8. Could you read what item number 8
Yes.
is, please?
Item number 8 is the Planning Department report relative to the status of the implementation of the City of LA's 2010 bicycle plan.
Okay, and the other two gentlemen, or gentleman and lady? Great. Dennis, I see you have general comment, and Alexis, I see that you have general comments too, and Wayne, you're against. So why don't we just start with you, Wayne?
Okay, I think you should start with the other one that had general, because I already gave general
That's
comment.
cool, go for it.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Hi, Alexis Lance, Los
Good to see
Angeles County Planning, Bicycle Coalition, sorry. We're really, we've been pleased with the BPIT process just in terms of being able to have a process that brings the bicycle community more into the implementation process of the plan. However, with the quarterly reports that planning brings forward, we'd like to see more information on just the overall work that's being done by both planning, DOT, and other agencies involved, such as the funding that's been applied for. We know recently the city applied for Safe Routes to School grants. So we would hope to see a report on which grants they applied for, what projects, what kind of funding they were asking for. Again, Metro call for projects. So just so we have a better understanding of the full work that's being done around the plan to make implementation possible. And so I will talk offline more with staff about incorporating more into their quarterly reports to you all.
Fabulous, and I appreciate what you said. It makes a lot of sense, and I'll ask staff to make a quick comment when they come up. Go for it.
Okay,
Yes.
my name is Dennis Hyman. My concern is the speed of the implementation. This may be a lack of money because we're running into environmental, rulings that we have to make and stuff. I mean, applications for environmental rules. And the speed of the implementation, it seems to be coming along rather slowly. The BPIT meetings, hopefully those will be expanded for beyond just the bicycle advocacy to get more of the community involved, which is the change upcoming. But I think we're gonna really struggle with getting 40 miles a year done on the way it's going. And hopefully we can look for more sources of money to implement this in order to get the 40 miles, because it's just not getting up to that level at this stage, I don't think.
Okay, and I appreciate your comments on that. And I'm going to ask our staff in a second after our next speaker to come up and just respond to this too. Just make a good point. Go for it.
Yeah, I actually, before the CRA went defunct officially, they had a presentation about the area near Figueroa and Staples Center and tearing out the streets and making these brand new sidewalks that would have bike traffic, and it looked great except where are the cars going to go? And what you're doing is a very small percentage of people who commute ride bikes. Most people drive cars. And cars are being treated like second-class citizens in all of these decisions. And what you're doing is you just passed a law that you cannot harass these bicyclists. And since they passed this new law, I've seen some very aggressive behavior on the part of these bicyclists. They give you the finger now because, now they dare you, if you do that, we're protected. And I think with the condition of the sidewalks in the city, and Carmen Trutanich's inability to pass or decide to go with an ordinance dealing with the maintenance of sidewalks, many of these issues are going to involve what you're going to do with sidewalks, because in the CRA's presentation, they talked about turning part of sidewalks into these bike lanes. So if you do this plan right now and you implement it, and then they turn around and shift the liability of the sidewalks to the homeowners, you might have a bicycle plan in a year or two that's completely obsolete. So I think what you have to do with your bicycle plan is determine who's going to have the maintenance of the sidewalks and the trees first, and then if they're going to alter these sidewalks, what are they going to do to alter these sidewalks? Because in the end, like the bus lanes, you're going to wind up pushing more motorists and squeezing them into smaller lanes of traffic, and it's going to create more and more congestion. And in the end, you're trying to do something good, but in the end, it's going to have bad consequences. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If I could have staff one quick second to come on up and discuss this with us. What I'd really like to do is not continue it if we can pull this off, and we could direct staff to begin implementation of the policy. Obviously, we want to get 40 miles done each year so we can be on target. And I also want to direct the DOT, city planning, and CAO to report on the options hiring a contractor so we can do public outreach. That might make sense for us to do this today rather than continue it unless somebody's reasonable. Go for it.
Yeah, we really need to see item 8 complete, but more than that, we need item 9 to be complete so we can move forward and begin implementation. We have a lot of lanes waiting for staff. Michelle Mowry, LA DOT, we've been working on the bicycle plan implementation for a number of months now. The bicycle plan implementation team began meeting over 6 months ago. We've held a number of monthly meetings to go ahead and move the process forward. We have multiple projects, over 30 projects that staff has provided some sort of information level of detail. They've all been analyzed. We're moving forward, and we're just beginning to look at the programs for implementation. So we've got a good start, and we're just about to move into quarterly meetings.
Please.
I'm Claire Bowen with City Planning. Been working with Jane Choi on the development of the bicycle plan implementation team. I'm going to actually turn it over to Jane to give our report.
Go for it.
Thank you. Once again, Jane Choi for the record. The bicycle plan implementation team began meeting in February of this year on a monthly basis. The main goal of the team was to receive, for city staff to receive implementation support and oversight from the advocacy community about the bicycle plan programs that matter to them the most. So far, we've had participation from a number of stakeholders, including the Bicycle Advisory Committee, the Los Angeles County Bicycle Coalition, Bikeside LA, as well as other community groups and members of the public. Most of the meetings so far has been focused on the most pressing issue for us, which is to get facilities on the road, as well as there are other important objectives as well, but we want to see those 40 miles on the road. So we have been focusing on the funding and construction of at least 200 miles of bicycle facilities, the 5-year implementation strategy. And the treatments being considered include road diets, which entail the reduction of possible reduction of vehicle lanes to include bicycle lanes, protected bicycle lanes, as well as shared lane markings. We want to talk a little bit about the environmental process, because all of the projects will receive environmental review, and a subset of them will require an environmental impact report. And we have been looking at each of the facilities of the first part of the 5-year implementation strategy and going through the engineering details with the BPIT, just in the to get their feedback about these facilities, as well as to provide transparency about the engineering. Starting in October, we're going to be moving to a quarterly basis. The plan stipulated that the BPIT meet on a quarterly basis from the beginning, but because we had so much legwork to do from the start, we met on a monthly basis, and we decided to go on a quarterly basis based on feedback received from the cycling community, namely that there wasn't enough time for the advocates to reach out to their constituents and get them participating in the BPIT process. A lot of them can't make it to the meetings. These include low-income communities that LACBC works with, as well as community groups in the Valley. So we wanted to give the advocates more time to get the responses from their stakeholders and bring it back to the BPIT. We also heard from BPIT members that there wasn't enough time being given to education programs and enforcement programs, so moving to a quarterly meeting and having a longer meeting will allow us to give thorough attention to some of these other objectives. The BPIT has been a work in progress, but DOT, as well as planning, we're devoted and committed to making the BPIT work and to continue to work with the advocates to move the bicycle plan forward.
Okay, here's what I want to do. I want to make sure that you meet with Alexis and Dennis after this meeting and have a discussion. Some of the cyclists have come up to me and they felt they have not been legitimately part of the process, and it's a constant process. Obviously, you're talking about quarterly reports. So I want to move this forward so we can move forward, frankly. But I want you to meet with them, and then I want you to set up a series of meetings with cyclists in the community that they can then come to me and say, Rosendahl, they're taking our input, they're working with us, because our goal is to get 40 miles done a year. We're already behind right now, and we have to find a way to catch up. Can I get that sense of commitment that we can do that?
Well, we do have limited staff. I do want to say that we are not behind. We are actually ahead of the process.
Oh, good.
And we are moving forward. And we, again, are looking at 30-plus projects at this point. And if we can move off a motion number 9 across, that'll help us get some of those miles on the ground.
Yes.
But we're not behind. We are ahead. And last year, we almost tripled the amount of miles we put in over the previous 10 years. So we're moving forward.
Okay.
We're gearing up. And do let me say that the BPIT process is open to everybody. Jane and Claire have been diligent about notifying the community, and we are working with any group that wants to come forward and meet with us.
Very good. And I'm going to ask my colleagues if they want to comment on item number 8, but what my recommendations will be to receive and file, direct staff to begin implementation of policy 3.113B of the bike plan, and direct the DOT city planning and the CAO to report on the options of hiring a contractor to conduct a public outreach and preliminary design on bicycle facility projects, and to consider compensation that contractors solely upon successful project delivery. That's the recommended motion, and if I could have support or comments, questions from my colleagues, and for the public, notice there's 4 of us here now, so we have a robust quorum of 4, not of 5. Anybody want to say anything on item number 8?
Yeah, I don't have any questions. I just say it's exciting that we're moving forward and we're actually putting some real mileage to this plan. I never thought I'd see it over the years, but we've finally gotten there, so I'm very excited.
Mr. Alicon. I was going to say, just over the years, I just went back on a bicycle after 30 years, and I want more of these paths, too. Okay, no, Mr. Parks.
No, I just was going to ask, do we get routine feedback on how this gets implemented?
On how the bicycle plan is implemented, or how we put the lanes on the ground, or?
Yeah, I mean, this updates on number 8 that you're asking us to move forward.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding here.
We're actually scheduled to meet with, come here quarterly to give you an update.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so it's unanimous. Thank you so much for item number 8. And now that I have a quorum, I'd like to just go through little housekeeping items, colleagues. We're going to like to do item number 9, and I know item number 6 has a crowd in here, but I want to get item number 9, as Mallory is saying, is something that we need to really move on. The appointment of folks, she's not here. She's going to go directly to council. We didn't recommend anything, and we better have all the paper in order so that the commissioner can be robustly discussed on the taxi cab commission. He's not here. That's item number 1. We move directly to council. Item number 2, 3, 4, and 5, the suggestion is to put it on consent unless somebody has a problem with item 2, 3, 4, and 5. And what they are preferential parking regular agenda items. 2, 3, 4, and 5.
I have no problem.
No problem, Mr. Parks says. Mr. LeBron, Vice Chair, welcome back.
Thank you very much. Good to be back.
Any problem with 2, 3, 4, and 5? I suggest they go on consent. Mr. Koretz? No problem with Mr. Koretz either.
Thank you.
5, so we have 2, 3, 4, and 5 on consent, agreed by the entire committee. All 5 members are here. So we're done with 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to go to 6 in a second, but since we did bicycling, I just want to get item number 9 up and running and discuss.
Item number 9 is the Reyes-Rosendahl motion relative to the transfer of funds in the amount of $475,000 for the installation of 8 newly designed bike lanes.
Okay, that is item number 9. We have no cards that I see on this, or am I imagining that? No cards on item number 9.
I have one, but it's okay. I'm just here to support.
You're here to support. Great, great.
Yeah.
Okay, so can I have a motion to move forward on this, Mr. Alicon? Oh, who did that? Mr. Koretz. Second? I second. Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Right.
Great.
Can I just make a request on the bike plan?
Yes.
Could they have just a courtesy report to the Arts and Parks, Health and Aging? A number of our
That's a
bikes
great idea.
have integrate with our park system, not necessarily off-road, but through the system. It'd be good to get an
Would you
update.
like a quarterly report?
Well, yeah, semi-quarterly, you know.
Semi-quarterly report, can we take that as instructions?
Is that all right, Ms. Mallory?
To do that one?
Understand?
On-
Take advantage of the Arts and Parks. They got land, and just give a report.
Okay, fine.
Thanks.
All right, so we unanimously approved item number 9.
And 8, too, right?
8 we did, yes.
Yeah, good. We're
8
getting
and
down
9
there,
are
man.
done. We're making progress here, folks. Now we're up to the one that has filled the room, which is item number 6.
Item number 6 is a CAO report relative to a DOT contract with ACS State and Local Solutions Incorporated for the development and installation of the systems and equipment necessary to implement Express Park, which is an intelligent parking management system for the downtown area. This is for a contract of 2 years with options for 2 one-year extensions and for an amount not to exceed $30.5 million.
Wayne, I forgot to ask you for item number 8 before we voted. You had filled out a card for item number 8. You had filled out one for item number 8.
He spoke.
Okay, okay. All right, great. Good afternoon. Tell us what we're dealing with here.
Good afternoon. I'm David Hirano from the Office of CAO. Before you have a request from the Department of Transportation for approval for a contract with ACS to implement the Intelligent Parking Management Program, pilot program in downtown Los Angeles. That program has been renamed Express Park. The contract is for 4 years and a total value of about $30 million. We currently have existing funding of $18.5 million, which will get us through the first 2 years and the implementation and testing phase of the program. Once the pilot program is up and running, we expect additional costs on the order of magnitude of approximately $4 million a year for O&M, and that would be available, we expect that to be available through the Special Parking Revenue Fund. We've reviewed the request and we recommend approval, and DOT and has several staff here available to answer any questions you may have.
Did you want to comment as well?
Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Dan Mitchell. I'm Senior Transportation Engineer with DOT. We're very excited about the Express Park project to bring this contract to you at this stage. We've been working on this project for several years, carefully designing all of the requirements, identifying the needs, and making sure that from an engineering standpoint, this is engineered for success. Just to refresh your memories, this project is about really 2 components. It's about using dynamic and demand-based parking pricing, as well as parking guidance to improve on-street and off-street parking in downtown Los Angeles. The goal is to reduce that circling of traffic that you've all experienced in downtown, where people are driving around and around the block to look for an open parking space. By bringing the latest technology, we seek to reduce the congestion and pollution in downtown Los Angeles as part of a comprehensive program with Metro called Express Lanes.
Okay, Mr. Department Head, I got a letter here, hot off the press, from the City Controller. It's today. I don't know if it was just 20 minutes ago or an hour or 2 ago, but we have a letter. Well, could you explain what this letter means, and does it impact this particular agenda item?
Hi, Jaime De La Vega, General Manager of DOT. I can't speak to the intent of the Controller's letter, but first of all, the points she raises in general, we agree with. We do agree that we need to have a strong contract with clear standards and procedures, and we are doing that, and my staff can provide further detail if you have questions. If the Controller has specific recommendations on contract language changes that would strengthen this process, we're happy to incorporate those and look forward to hearing from her. I think the second issue that is raised relates to issues raised in one of our past audits where the department needs to be testing technology and devices before installation. Again, Mr. Mitchell can detail this, but the 2 main technology components are meters, which we've been testing, have been installed, and have been operational since 2008, as well as the sensor technology, which has been tested and installed and operational since 2007. So we agree with the controller's general concern, and the department can confirm to this committee that we have tested the recommended devices. And finally, on the issue of general oversight, or for those of you who have worked with USDOT before, I think you know that they have a very rigorous set of policies, procedures, and requirements, and the department that's going to be operating under those requirements will be subject to their audit and their review, including up to a review by their inspector general if they had any concerns. And my staff's been working with them on a daily basis to make sure that we meet all of their requirements as far as the procurement, the technology, the analysis, the monitoring, and the reporting on the back end. You should also know that through MTA, who is the umbrella agency, they are hiring a consultant at FTA's behest in order to evaluate both the hot lane portion as well as this express lane portion, and we will be happy to share those results with the committee and the council when that's available at the end of the pilot.
Great. And so then this item here, which is being recommended, the CAO report relative to the DOT contract with ACS State and Local Solutions Incorporated for the development and installation of systems and equipment necessary to implement Express Park. You agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Levon.
Just a question, if I could add. James, right?
Dan.
Dan, hey, Jaime, if I just ask you to move back to your old seat.
Yes, sir.
Just for a question, this is all I want to know. I'm for technology. Okay, so Dan, you ever hear of Three Dog Night?
Yes, sir.
They had a song called Joy to the World.
Yes, sir.
You know who wrote it? You know who wrote it? Hoyt Axton.
I do know.
He also wrote Greenback Dollar, but that's another story. I knew Hoyt Axton. I loved Hoyt. All right, so there's joy in life in Los Angeles if you get to a parking space. Now, I'm for this, but you got to assure me this. If I get to that's a parking space, excuse me, Mr. De La Vega, for moving, but right next to you, Dan, is that's a parking space right now. This technology that you're proposing here, if there's 24 minutes left or 17 minutes left or 7 minutes left, I want the joy to the world come to A, the Angelino who finds the empty parking space, and B, that there's 7 minutes or 12 or 24 minutes, not back to zero, because I know some technology is able to take it once the vehicle leaves the space, it goes back to zero. So you got to tell me, Dan. No, he's different than Mr. Parks. I'm different. We're good guys. But is this something that goes back to zero, or does it give you the benefit of the joy of A, finding a space, and finding a space with time on it?
All right, Councilmember Labange, we're testing a number of different technologies and rate structures and strategies to try to create parking availability in downtown Los Angeles. So the first part of your request that you can find a space, that's what we're going after. In order to find a space, we need turnover of those spaces. And providing free parking doesn't accomplish that.
But if you get 12 minutes or 24 minutes.
Okay, I'll address that. So
joy to the world. Remember what I started.
So using demand-based pricing, that's the tool that we're proposing to implement as part of this project to create that availability. So if a car leaves and there's 24 or 7 or 10 minutes and someone else arrives, they have no incentive to leave that space. The pricing can't work.
But they may tell their friends what a great day they had in L.A. because they found a space and there was 24 minutes on it.
So that's why one of the recommendations of the report does address experimenting with that type of technology in a limited way.
All right.
Okay, just in the project area.
All right. So, Mr. Chair, back to you. I had to ask that question because I do believe in joy to the world. It is joyful when you find a parking space and if there's time in the meter.
Absolutely. Everyone loves free parking, but with the congestion that we have in downtown...
I understand, but you still got to get it. We can't be that good. Okay, back to Mr.
Thank you very much, Mr. Co-Chair.
Thank you.
Does anybody else want to speak before I have the public comment cards?
I was wondering, did they have...
Please,
Mr.
I
was wondering, did the system have a video? I was wondering if that's what it's up there for, a video or something to show us what the system is?
A DVD or a PowerPoint. They got a PowerPoint?
Yeah, we don't have a PowerPoint, but the other thing I wanted to... Sorry. The other thing that I wanted to highlight as part of this project is in order to find that golden parking space and to find the space that suits your needs, an important part of this project is a parking guidance system. And that parking guidance system is similar to the application that we launched in Hollywood at the end of last year and in Studio City recently that allows you to see where available spaces are. On top of that, we're going to be incorporating the pricing and also the off-street parking so that instead of having to choose based on what you can see, a guy with a flag trying to flag you in or find a metered space and driving around and around, you've got a clear view into where with the best parking that suits your needs.
And also tell us about the other half of it, whether it's the offset citations.
Yes. So another important component of this project is, we can have demand-based rates that are based on the actual usage of those spaces. But if those those rates can't be enforced, then they can't be effective. And so one of the ways that we've, as part of this demonstration project, are going to ensure that those rates can be effective is through a directed enforcement program. That's very similar to the program that we've been testing in Hollywood. And that allows the officers to view on their handheld device the spaces that are in their area that are potential violations, so that they can be more efficient in their routing rather than driving around and around and adding to that congestion. They can be more efficient in how they route to enforce the demand-based rates.
Okay, Mr. Koretz.
Yeah, we, as was said, I don't know what time of the day we got the letter from the city controller, but it does encourage us to scrutinize the track record of the vendors under consideration. And at a minimum, I think we'd want to be able to address some things that appeared in the press about the street line company and their efforts in San Francisco. I have an article that says basically they were replaced and their sensors had to be removed, and they were replaced by sensors provided by Street Smart. And according to the company hired by the San Francisco MTA, Streetline did not meet the performance standards specified in the contract. So I assume we've checked all that out and have answers for why that didn't work in San Francisco. I know they're working out fine in Hollywood, as I understand it. So what's the difference? Why is it working in Hollywood? Why did it not work in San Francisco? I think we need to know that before we undertake a major contract.
Understood. And San Francisco, just for everyone's benefit, San Francisco has the only other similar project to this, and they are about 6 to 12 months ahead of us in that process. So they were the very first ones that had to develop specifications for equipment in all realms, and in some cases they set the bar very high. And what that meant was there were challenges in meeting those specifications in a number of areas. We've learned from their experience. Ultimately, they changed their specifications and they lowered the bar so that they had a more realistic perspective on what could be accomplished with the current technology. And after lowering the bar, then their subsequent contractor was able to meet that technology and those specifications. So we learned from that experience and set our specifications based on that from the beginning. The contractor Street Line that you mentioned, the city has had a contract with them for several years. We've tested their equipment, and they have demonstrated that they can meet the specifications over the last 3 years that we've been working with them. So while San Francisco had a problem based on being the first ones at taking a shot at this, ultimately they had to correct their expectations. We've right-sized our expectations from the beginning, and we're very confident that the Street Line is the best overall technical solution for this project, based not only on the performance of their sensors, but also on the applications that their company brings to light. And that's what I was referring to, the Parker application that currently is fed data from Hollywood, has been extremely successful, and also the enforcement technology that I described.
So I don't know how accurate this article is. Were they actually forced to remove 8,000 sensors in San Francisco?
I think probably I'm not the best one to speak for what happened in San Francisco. I can speak from the technical side because we are in regular communication between the project managers there and here. We're both working on federally funded projects, but I can tell you that based on our specifications and the criteria that we used in selecting the subcontractors, Streetline is the best overall technical solution for us.
Well,
We do have a-
assume somebody knows if they actually made them yank out 8,000 sensors, as the articles speculated would happen, whether that actually happened, and whether that was purely because of specifications that were related to them being the first, or whether there was actually something defective in those sensors that required them to be replaced apparently at no cost to the city, which is a pretty dramatic thing for a contractor to have to deal with.
Yeah, I believe there's a representative from Streetline here that can speak to that. There was two other things I wanted to mention on that, though. One is that in San Francisco, they have a different environment. So one of the challenges of using sensors in San Francisco is they have a lot of magnetic interference. That's something they discovered in trying to use this technology, and that's something that we don't have here in Los Angeles. That's something that we haven't experienced. Those Streetline sensors are working in the project area collecting sample data. The feds required that we collect 1 year's worth of data in advance of the project, so we had something to compare to, and those sensors are working in the project area for that purpose. The second is in San Francisco, ACS, who is our selected contractor for Express Park. ACS was actually the contractor to install sensors, and they used Streetline and then Street Smart. In their proposal to us, they proposed both companies, and we evaluated that, but their recommended contractor was Streetline. And so I think that speaks to whether, what happened in San Francisco if that company still recommended them in our environment.
Council members, good afternoon. Amir Sadati, Assistant General Manager. Appreciate Dan's, and just to add to that, obviously San Francisco is a different city. They have a different contract set up and a different procurement. So, and we actually do more than read the articles. We actually talk to the city of San Francisco. We have a very good relationships. We are partners in peer learning experience. What I do like, if you have the time, if the chair wishes, ACS is here, and they're the ones that actually did remove the sensors in San Francisco and replace them. So if you have that specific question to them, they can come up to the table and answer that for you.
Sure, let's have them come up. Strike while the iron is hot. Go.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Talbot. I'm Managing Director with ACS State and Local Solutions. And you're correct, we are the vendor in San Francisco, and we did install Streetline and subsequently install Street Smart on our dime. So we were very careful in making our selection this time, so as not to make the same mistake. But it is a very different contract. I think all of us probably didn't know the depth of the pool when we jumped in with the requirements in San Francisco. I think we've all matured quite a bit as companies in development of the applications. Not to mention that since 2007, you have a proven solution. You have a solution that's actually working out here in LA. So I can tell you that we're very comfortable with our recommendation. It is our preferred choice, and they're further along than the alternatives. And I think to meet the schedule that we've laid out, it's what we would recommend we go with.
So what went wrong in San Francisco that actually required the sensors to be removed?
You know, it's interesting. In hindsight, maybe we should have known that we do we do a lot of toll work at ACS, and we use loops and electromagnetic sensors in a lot of our work, and probably should have known that San Francisco has historically, under our BOTA contract with the tolls, have been difficult to deal with because they have a lot of underground magnetic interference, and unfortunately the technology is all very similar with the vendors that are out in the field today, and there have been issues. There have been things that had to be accommodated, and that was a challenge, and I think the hurdles that were set by the city probably didn't anticipate that. But it's also was the very first one out of the block, and so I think all of us in the industry have learned quite a bit as to what it takes to be successful with this technology.
So just one more question. So the problems that existed in San Francisco, you don't anticipate being relevant to the city of Los Angeles?
You know, I think I always anticipate problems. I think what we had the benefit here in Los Angeles is that we've seen it work. We've worked very closely with Streetline over the last several years here in San Francisco with their sensors. So it has we've become very comfortable with the level of performance that it can deliver. And it is unique. I do think it is unique from a technical standpoint with the environment, the infrastructure in San Francisco than LA. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Richard Alicon, but I just want you to know that District Council 36 of the Painters and Allied Trades sent a letter, and they make a comment that we're uncomfortable with the direction of ACS. The recommended vendor for this project is heading in its selection of sub-vendor LA Express Park project. Specifically, we're concerned about the problems associated with the street line network's ability to deliver on the project, given their most recent attempt deployment in San Francisco. Just for the record, I just want you to know we received that letter, and that was part of the questions. Mr. Allen.
Yeah, the issue in San Francisco concerns me not because San Francisco is different, but because the standards were not met. Whatever the standards are in the other jurisdiction, they were not met. So the geography is different, but the proposal was different. The project was different. And what concerns me was that the standards were not met. So I'm wondering how do we have the confidence that the standards would be met here? So it's not an issue of the difference between San Francisco and LA. It's the fact that the standards were not met that were promised.
Sure, I can speak to that. So the standards in San Francisco, as I mentioned, being the very first ones that did this, they really set the bar very high. They shot for the moon. In my opinion, they specified equivalent of, a 500 horsepower car that gets 100 miles to the gallon. And they challenged the industry, but those specifications were higher than technology was available. And so we learned from that, and working with them, our specifications are set at the level that theirs have now been set at. So we're united in the industry. The other
that doesn't address my concern, but let me ask differently. When the standards were not met, ACS chose to go with a different technology, and then the standards were met. So I'm not understanding what's going on.
Let me be clear. The standards that we're operating under in San Francisco are not the standards that were in the original RFP.
Right.
So,
but nevertheless, you changed to Street Smart.
Correct.
So
but neither part
why
did the original standard.
Why did you change to Street Smart? Because you felt you could accomplish the job better, or because San Francisco said you can't use Streetline anymore?
I think it was a collaborative decision between our prime contractor, Serco, our customer, and ACS, to see if there was another alternative that could meet those standards.
So tell me, what's the difference between the technology in Street Smart and Streetline?
Complicated.
Try complicated on a lowly council member.
I'm not a technology background, but
not like us.
The presence detection is very similar, electromagnetic detection. Quite frankly, the sensors themselves look fairly similar. I think the transmission of data may go through a different routing system, but the output is the same.
Councilmember, I think I can address it from evaluation in Los Angeles. So in our RFP and in the contract, we set 4 criteria for selecting the subcontractors. We looked at cost, capabilities, quality, and demonstrated performance.
Right.
Okay? And in this case, the capabilities of the Streetline system exceed that of the Street Smart system. The cost is...
Okay, in terms of, let me ask you this question. One of the key considerations for somebody driving around in circles in Los Angeles is if they're going to use this system, the key consideration that they're going to want is accuracy of the information that they get. So how often is the information updated on the 2 systems?
Well, we actually have the Streetline president here in the CEO.
I'm asking the department.
I understand, and what I just wanted to make sure, because Councilmember Parks also wanted to do the demonstration. So we understand the concern. We actually, as mentioned...
I'm asking a very specific question, Amir. I'm asking what the difference in time, if there is a difference in how long it takes to get it. So you're driving down the street, you plug into this system. If it's accurate by 1 minute, you know, you got a pretty good chance. If it's accurate by 5 minutes, that driving around looking for a parking space is not going to work, because within 5 minutes, the parking situation is going to change. So what is the difference in the accuracy between the Street Smart system and the Street Line system?
Well, the way this process went is we set the specifications for what the minimum requirements were for the equipment.
I'm not asking about the minimum requirements. I'm asking about the difference between how, timing-wise, how accurate is Street Smart versus Street Line.
I can tell you that the requirement is that the change in accuracy, and the change...
I'm not asking about the requirement. I'm asking, do you not know the answer to the question?
We have not compared how long it takes for that to be transmitted from one system for the next.
Do you not know whether there's a difference? Do you think that's an important criteria to the driver?
The important criteria is that it be communicated within 3 minutes. That's the specification.
Okay, so within 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
You drive around the block in 3 minutes and the parking's gone. So what is the actual accuracy of Street Line and what is the actual accuracy of Street Smart? And you're telling me, if you're telling me the department did not evaluate that, I have a very big concern now.
I understand. The way the systems engineering management process works is you establish the standard, then you do acceptance, you design to that, you do acceptance testing and validate it. If the equipment doesn't meet the standard, it's not a contest in a way that...
You forgot an important element to that process. The council votes on it.
Understood.
So our standards also have to be met. And I'm asking a question that gets to a standard that I need to know. I need to know how quickly the information will be upgraded by one system over the other. You can't give me an answer to that question?
Okay. In the systems engineering process, the standard is set, and then that standard needs to be met. If it's not met by the technology...
Okay, let me ask, is there a representative of Street Smart here? Is there anybody who can represent that? Is there anybody who can represent that information for Street Smart? Okay, let me ask Street Line. How accurate is your system?
It's extremely accurate, sir.
Give me how much time?
It's about 2 minutes. Within 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
You will know. And, to the earlier question as well, ACS and the city provide the answer to San Francisco. The only issue there was in certain areas, and we had 8,000 sensors. The vast majority of them were fine. It was only in these muni noise areas.
Okay, you're answering a question I didn't ask.
It's about 2 minutes.
And it's my time. I asked, okay, so he says about 2 minutes. Do you have any idea what it is for Street Line?
For Street Smart?
No, that's Street Line. Yeah, for Street Smart.
I don't have the Street Smart data. And
does anybody have that information?
I don't think they've done anything.
I mean, people don't want to be driving around getting old information and then thinking the parking space is where they make a right turn and they should have gone left.
Absolutely. And Councilmember, so the key is that the Street Line has demonstrated their performance in Hollywood. So we've had extensive look at how that system works. There's been news reports when it was launched where we had news reporters out on the street, and when they had the application in their car and they were driving around and they said, "Oh, it says we should have a spot here." They go and they say, "Here's the spot." So there is demonstrated performance in Los Angeles.
Okay, but I'm curious, why didn't the department ask the question of what is the best time you could offer?
Councilmember, the criteria that was used...
I know. I'm asking why the department didn't change the criteria. Why didn't they have a criteria that said, how quickly will the information be updated for the driver? Why didn't they ask that question?
What we asked was whether they could meet the specifications and whether...
I'm not asking that. I'm asking why didn't the department ask that question?
Because that's not part of the systems engineering process. The systems engineering process is to set the standard and then to meet the standard or to exceed the standard. And that's what ACS is committed to do with their recommended contractor. If they cannot meet that standard...
Wait, the systems
engineering process is...
The systems engineering process is designed by who?
The federal government is the one that required us to use that process. It's the same process that's used to do NASA projects and put things in space.
So you can't upgrade those standards?
Oh, certainly we can upgrade the standards. We set the standards based on what was necessary to deliver the system. In that process, you don't set the highest standard and you don't have competitions to see who can get there the fastest. You set a standard to meet the needs of the project, because that would escalate the cost of the project exponentially.
And also, Councilmember, as mentioned earlier, this went through the federal guideline process. So the federal, because it's a high-risk ITS project, has a very systematic process, and that's what Mr. Mitchell mentioned. We went through this SEMP, Systems Engineering Management process, where...
Did Street Smart meet that standard?
Street Smart...
Did they meet that standard?
ACS pre-qualified Street Smart as meeting the standard.
So they both met the standard.
Right, but we
So
evaluated based
when
on
things
more
are-
than the
when
standard.
things are
We
equal,
evaluated
don't-
based on the cost,
when things are equal, don't we
capability,
want to go to the
quality,
best?
Demonstrated performance. So there were 4 criteria that we used, and the best overall technical solution. For example, cost, the Street Smart solution was significantly more expensive, while we were getting less for that cost.
Was that before or after calculating the labor costs?
That was after calculating the labor cost. Actually,
Now,
they're
Street,
significantly
as
more
I understand it,
expensive to
ACS
install.
has, or Street Line has made a commitment to hire a different workforce than was previously proposed.
I can't speak to that. What I can speak to is...
Let me
the
ask Street Line, are you intending to use IBAW workers?
We're using a union workforce. We have Siemens that does our implementations for us. I believe they are here.
Was the calculation for those employees, is that the same calculation that is in the current contract that is being proposed?
It is a union workforce from
Well, it costs
Siemens
the same.
that does that.
So it costs the same?
I don't know.
Councilmember, the cost is not the same, and the reason the cost is not the
Different
same
areas.
is because there are 2 different types of sensors, one that's mounted on the surface,
Right.
and one that requires being embedded in the street.
Right.
To embed in the street, you have to drill a core into the street and install that. That takes significantly more time versus the surface-mounted sensor that can be epoxied onto the street surface. We've evaluated both. And they both work well, but there is a significant cost savings in the labor. There's also significant cost savings in the ongoing costs. So one of the focuses was to, after the demonstration, that if the demonstration is a success, and we expect it will be, that the city's ongoing costs would be manageable.
Okay.
So we're looking at the overall timeline, and these sensors have a life of 5
I don't
to
have a
7
problem with Street Line, okay? Don't get me wrong. What I'm trying to figure out is since this is a demonstration project, why can't we get a test from both? Why can't you just give half to Street Line and half to Street Smart, and then we'll know what the best system for Los Angeles is?
That's an excellent question, and the reason is because that was certainly not pondered in the RFP to have and integrate multiple technologies. It also means that each part would be working independently. So, for example, the Parker application that we've seen in Hollywood, if we had street line sensors and only half of that, the Parker application would show only half of the availability in...
But that's Hollywood. This project is twice as big.
Oh, absolutely, but you were proposing if the project was split between 2 different types of sensors, we'd be asking the public to look at one application if you want to go west of Broadway, and another application if you wanted to look at the parking occupancy east of Broadway. So to integrate multiple systems into one, that escalates the cost significantly.
I'm just saying that
this is a high-risk
here's what I'm thinking. You know, it's like buying a cell phone. You know, there's constantly moving technology. This is new technology, relatively new, and better technology will be emerging as we go forward. And it seems to me that when you're selecting, particularly for a demonstration project, when you're selecting new technology, you would want to have exposure to all the alternatives. And if you're saying that they all tested fairly well, I'm wondering why we can't just split this thing and find out which one is better, because our intent is to expand this throughout.
Sure.
If you're cutting off a technology that exists today from this project, you're essentially saying that we're committed to street line from here on forward.
That's not necessarily the case. And actually, so we're focusing on one element of this project, and there are many subcontractors in this project, but I'll use a different example. So if we considered the parking meters in the city, that's another component of this project, to bring credit card parking meters that bring cell phone payment and other things. If we split that into multiple vendors, as you can imagine, we'd be able to test more technology. In fact, for the parking pay stations, there are probably a dozen different vendors, and we could have a different pay station on every street and have a great technology test. But the focus of this project is to deliver the requirements to deliver the project. If we focused on testing every type of technology, we would significantly slow down the process, and that's not what the feds gave us the money to test. We're testing the concept of demand-based parking pricing, not a technology test of every different kind of sensor or parking meter or any technology involved. So the focus is
if you did split the contract, if they did give the service in two different implementers, would that be inconsistent with the proposal?
It would be inconsistent with the proposal. The proposal provided two options, one or the other, and they recommended
What is
street
that?
lines.
One or the other what?
Selected street lines.
One or the other what?
One or the other sensor providers, one or the other parking meter providers, one or the other. There were several options for subcontractors. And we actually didn't talk about that process.
Why did it do that?
Yeah, so we didn't talk about that process, but in our focus in this RFP.
Let me just go for the bunch of questions, because what he's asking are great questions, and it fits right in with the overall view. So let me just raise them and then see how it fits, Richard. The Express Park contract before us today is part of a larger federal demonstration project on congestion pricing. Could you provide an overview of that project and how this Express Park piece fits into it? I think that's
sure.
pretty much
Express Park is an $18.5 million project that's part of a $290 million project from Metro called Express Lanes. That includes many components that are designed to reduce congestion in Los Angeles. That includes the what's called high occupancy toll lanes or express lanes. Those are the carpool lanes on the freeway that allow solo drivers to buy in. There's transit improvements on these corridors on the 10 and the 110 freeways coming into downtown. There are transit improvements, van pool improvements. It's a whole comprehensive strategy of which Express Park is the parking component once the traffic gets to downtown Los Angeles. So it's viewed as a comprehensive strategy, and Express Park is one component of that.
Okay, the second question is, what is the total ongoing annual cost of the program? Was this amount included in the SPRF 5-year operational plan that the council recently approved?
Yes, the ongoing costs, if this one-year demonstration project is successful, would be about $4 million annually, and that was provided for in the 5-year plan. At the time we developed the 5-year plan, we didn't have the results of the proposals, so there's some adjustments that need to be made in subsequent years, but that was considered that for the first 2 years of the 5-year plan, the downtown area would be focused on, and then based on the success of the program here, then that could be expanded to other areas of the city.
Okay, the third question is, DOT states that the contract allows a cost sharing with the city of any savings realized by the contractor. How will the city staff monitor contractor profit?
I think that's a kind of a misunderstanding. What was done is, after the initial RFP, the proposals came in significantly over budget, and so we went back to the two proposers and asked them to look at, and we revised the scope and asked them to revise their pricing to meet that new scope, and we met budget that way. At that time, ACS proposed that if there were further cost savings that they negotiated subsequent to their proposal, that they would share those during contract negotiations. So that's not during the course of the project, but actually was part of the contract negotiation.
And I'm going to turn it back to Mr. Alicante in a second. I just want to get the rest of them out. Is the project contingency less than 1% adequate for a project of this type?
Well, this project, as I mentioned, was, originally the proposals came in over budget, and then with the revised proposals, they came in just under budget. While there's a small contingency, this is essentially a fixed price contract. So it really, a contingency isn't an essential part of that, but because those prices are fixed.
Okay, so the ACS is the recommended contractor for the overall project.
Absolutely. So,
and your next question is, how, now for this contract, you took a different approach in how the subcontractors were chosen. Could you explain?
Certainly. So in this case, because we wanted to have one contractor responsible for delivering the project rather than selecting individual subcontractors on separate RFPs, we wrote the RFP to allow the prime contractors to team up with, as I mentioned before, up to several options for subcontractors. And that was to allow the flexibility of subcontractors to be on more than one prime contractor team. And that's exactly what happened. So that strategy was very successful. The concept was that we could evaluate the prime contractors based on their own capabilities rather than tie it up because one particular parking meter was the best one, and that required then, if you wanted that best parking meter, you had to pick a certain prime contractor.
Okay,
Hopefully
the
that
second
makes
question, only two more. This is a 2-year demonstration project, correct?
It's a 2-year contract, initial term of the contract, but it's a 1-year demonstration project.
1 year.
Yes. So the first part of the contract from hopefully September through next April would be implementation, installing all the sensors and the meters and the systems, and then there would be a 1-year demonstration from April of 2012 to April of 2013, and then there would be some extra time in evaluation and wrap-up of the project.
And the last question is, what type of data will be collected, who will be collecting it, and how will you determine whether or not the program is successful?
Well, I think as was mentioned earlier, the U.S. DOT has a contractor to evaluate the overall project, but the main components of that are whether the demand-based pricing can deliver the parking availability, that's our goal, between 70 to 90% of the space is being occupied, and then also whether that has resulted in traffic congestion reduction and pollution reduction based on the impacts to traffic. So the data that feeds that comes from the sensors that we've installed and also from the traffic sensors that are in place as part of our traffic management center, the ATSAC system. So looking at the traffic volumes and the availability of parking, you can infer the benefits to congestion in downtown.
It's your pleasure, Captain. I can either have him do his demonstration and we can take questions.
Let me just say, I met with Streetline and I have their little thing on my desk, so I'm familiar with it. But here's the way I look at this. This is a demonstration project, and we will expand this concept, the use of this technology, throughout the city of Los Angeles. So it seemed to me that it is important for us to create a race to the top, to drive the industry forward and create a competitiveness that works for the city of LA. ACS works with Streetline and they work with Street Smart. They know both these technologies. They're in a position to use both these technologies. I don't know what happened in San Francisco. I'm very curious about why the city of San Francisco was okay with Street Smart, but not okay with Streetline. I'm very, very interested in that, and you know, I don't want to delve into the intricacies of the technologies here, but you know, I can't support. I'm not going to vote one way or the other on this without getting that information. I need to understand why San Francisco was okay with Street Smart. What was, there must have been some technological issues. I don't know, maybe they were just mad at the vendor. I don't know what happened up there, but I'd sure like to know. But it seems to me that if we had the opportunity to have both providers work in providing this service, that it would create a race to the top. They would work competitively to be better than the other guy so that they could get the next contract that comes down the road. But by selecting one or the other, we are essentially locking ourselves in. Now, you're going to say, well, no, not essentially because we're going to go to RFP, but once you get first in, just as in the experience of Hollywood versus downtown, you're likely to get the same technology. I've seen this when I was in the state senate over and over again. The first computer contract that would go in as a demonstration project would end up being the contracted system for that entire department, and we end up with the Oracle situation for just that reason. We get locked into one contractor. The reason I'm suggesting that we go with both applications, with one contractor managing both projects, is because I think that's the best way for the city of Los Angeles to get an effective competition, a race to the top in terms of performance, and managed by an objective third party, so that we can build a better system the next time, which hopefully would go much further and provide a better demonstration project for the federal government. So with that, I would move that we ask for the department to come back with a report. If you're going to move this forward, I'm not going to vote one way or the other on this. But I would ask that we ask the department to come back with a report as to the ramifications of trying to modify this proposal so that it includes both Street Line and Street Smart, and allowing ACS to work with both companies and
I could ask ACS, where's ACS here? Could you live with that? Would it make sense to you?
If you live with it anywhere else in the world.
With
Yeah.
the different ones?
Honestly, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Parks has questions too, and we do have the public.
Honestly, it doesn't necessarily make sense to us. I think I understand your race to the top. The reality is that exists in the industry today. These are very popular products that are out there. They're all competing for business. We're seeing progression in the technology out in the industry. Ourselves as ACS, as someone who likes to integrate and bring product to customers, I'm not sure you would necessarily want to host that race here under one project. I do think it could add risk. It could add time to the proposal and to the implementation of a successful program. So it wasn't something we recommended. But I understand what you're trying to do.
Mr. Chair, if I may, because I think I really understand what Councilmember Alarcon is saying, and I think they're valid. And what we can say from the department, having come from a parking program that was in shambles about 7 years ago, we, through your leadership, through the mayor that believed in us, have put in technology. We've been piloting and testing different technology since 2006. 2007. We've come and we've brought in pay by phone. We've brought in different manufacturers, different vendors, and you're right, they all changed. You bring in something, the technology keeps moving. And I think what hasn't been mentioned here is the timeline of this federal project. Right now, with the council recess, I believe the department requested that this item be in council this Friday, because if we don't get the notice to proceed one way or other, whatever that this ultimate policy decision is, that does impact the delivery, installation, and being able to deliver this project, and that puts the entire project at risk, council member. And that's what I just want to make sure we understand. And I think what we're saying at this moment in time, where we have been given $15 million, it's not easy to get $15 million from the federal government. I assure you, the department, the mayor, the council, everybody worked very hard to get this project up and running. And to do that on the hopes and wishes of a project, of one of the components that may or may not work, I think that's what we're telling you. Based on the criteria we put in the RFP, price, demonstrated capability, actual product working here, we feel that that risk is somewhat lower and mitigated. Our costs are less in order to deliver this. This doesn't mean that we can't do a project with Street Smart. We have done multiple projects parallel to these things, but I think we just need to make sure as a city we'll be looked at, and the entire nation is looking at us also. We have New York, Seattle, Houston, Washington, D.C. They all have a similar type component that they're looking at demand-based parking pricing. San Francisco went a certain way, we're going a different way, and we've been talking, we'll continue to communicate, but I just think it's important to understand the time constraint, council member, that to go back and report back and come back, that may jeopardize the funds, and I just needed the council to know that.
And I also wanted to emphasize that this systems engineering process that the federal government has required us to use is designed to lower risk. They recognize this as a high-risk project, and so the process is designed to lower risk. Introducing multiple vendors for sensors, while it does produce a technology test and a competition between vendors, it doesn't lower risk for the project. While this is a demonstration project, it's a demonstration of using demand-based pricing and parking guidance to reduce congestion and pollution in downtown LA. I'm sure we can agree on that. that's the demonstration, not of every type of available technology from every vendor.
Okay, Mr. Parks.
Thank you very much. Let me go back. I think we got this $200 million because another part of this county rejected the money. Is that accurate?
It's because I believe FHWA originally selected New York for a congestion reduction demonstration project, and they wanted to do cordon pricing in Manhattan, and Albany didn't
It
agree.
was New York that got the money initially. So the MTA struggled and became the recipient of the $200 million.
Correct.
Okay. And the issue of the freeways, the meters, and the sensors are all tied together.
Yes,
As
it's all
one
part of that project,
project.
now called Express Lanes.
Okay. And then one thing I think we were concerned about the issue of what happened in San Francisco, but I think what resolved our concern, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, is that we found out that after the transitions, neither company met the original standard that was put in place.
Correct.
Say that again, sorry.
Correct.
Okay. So the second attempt at it, when they changed companies, that second company did not meet the same standard of the first company, so neither one of them met the standard.
Correct. Standards have been adjusted since the original RFP.
Okay. And then I think what's important is that how do people get the information when they're looking for the parking place?
That would be through the parking guidance system.
Okay, now, where do they access it?
Yeah, so there's several ways that information comes, through the internet, through Metro's 511 system, through signs on the street, but probably most importantly through the applications that are going to be available to people through their smartphones, even in-vehicle navigation systems.
And wouldn't the application and the timing be significantly impacted by what carrier that they have?
Based on the cell phone carrier?
Yeah, I mean, if you have a certain cell phone, because I know...
No, what's specified in the RFP is
No,
that
I'm
the
just saying,
applications
or is
would...
the real live access to the information?
Yes.
Your carrier is the one that dictates whether it's a minute and a half or 30 seconds or 2 minutes.
The cell phone system
Or if you
certainly
have
has
my
the
phone and you go by Olympic in the freeway and it drops every time. I mean, so it has to do with the carrier.
I see what you mean,
All right.
yes.
So the thing is, you set a standard that was hopefully in general and feasible for everyone, but when you're out in your car looking for that parking place, your cell phone dictates whether it's less than a minute or 3 minutes.
That could have an impact, certainly, on how it's
If you
presented
use that as a
to the
vehicle.
user.
All right, so, I mean, the other ones, if you call another number, you might get more dated information, but again, they're getting it from somewhere that's depending on a carrier providing it.
Correct.
All right. And then the other thing is that, do we view Hollywood as a pilot on this sensors?
Yes.
Okay, Hollywood is the pilot. And
We
what did we use?
installed sensors in Hollywood and in Studio
What
City.
type of sensors did we put in Hollywood?
Street line.
Okay, and so we monitor them for how long?
We've had them installed since 2008, so for the
We've
past
looked at them
3
for a
years.
while.
Correct.
Okay, and so we're talking about putting the same technology in this $15 million project.
Yes.
And then, and again, I think Mayor mentioned that we went through a testing phase for LADOT in 2006. We looked at every type of meter, every type of, what do we call it, the cards payment system.
Different types of payments, pay and display, pay by space.
We looked at all that, and we've come to a conclusion, some of it fits our needs. That's why we have new meters on the street and why we have new pay stations. So we've gone through the test, now we're doing implementation. That's how we got 20,000 meters on the street.
That's exactly right.
And then I think the other thing that I think, from what I can see, that bodes against having a dual sensor issue is that if you have to give people 2 apps to look at, and you have to know the city, and most people in downtown LA may not know the city, so if you have to be north of First Street or south of First Street or east or west of Broadway, to say so the sensors would be driving the project, as opposed to the project being a demonstration to show how we can deal with congested parking.
Absolutely. Our goal is to make this as easy as possible for our customers.
So that maybe the least expensive item in the project, sensors, would be driving the project.
That's one component of it, yes.
Okay. So that's what I just wanted to say that, and you know when you've been here too long is because I've seen this at MTA and I saw it here and it's now becoming a reality. But I remember how hard it was to get the 200 million, and we made a commitment that we were going to use it and that we were going to make sure that we made a demonstration. And we in the 8th District are catching heat about what's going to happen on the freeway. But we thought it was worth the demonstration to see whether you could make the system work as a demonstration. And I don't think we should lose sight of the 6,000 meters that you're going to put downtown. It allows you to move 6,000 first-rate meters that are in downtown to other part of the city so that you can begin to continue creating more revenue that you've seen on the first 20,000 meters.
Correct.
Don't shake your head now. Just, you can say yes to me.
Yes.
We'll be at 20, we will be at 24,000 as of this week, so. 24,000.
So I think we have to look at it in the larger context, and I'd hate to say we approve something that's driven by the least expensive part of the system, which is the sensors, and to have two different apps to look at a portion of downtown and defeat the purpose of a larger $200 million gift that was given to us, and end it without the success we expect. So I hope we go forward with their recommendation.
Okay, I just want to say, sort of an editorial. As you can see, we're a 5-member committee, and each one is an individual, but the collective wisdom is phenomenal. So I appreciate the whole dialogue that has been taking place on this subject, uncontrolled by the chair, because I don't believe in controlling meetings. I believe in a free expression. So why don't we do this? Why don't you give us your demonstration, and we'll pull the cards and get people.
Okay, so great. Thank you very much again for the record. My name is Zia Yusuf. I'm the CEO of Streetline. Appreciate the comments. A couple of things here. We, over the last 6 months, have added 12 customers, including parts of New York City, the Washington, D.C. metro system, Asheville. So we're in multiple cities now. With your permission, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to show a very short video, which was an NBC video, and then actually show you the apps in live to do
Boom,
that.
boom.
Boom, boom. There you
As
go.
Tommy says.
Here's an app for that. Jeff might be live in Hollywood to show us how it works, Jeff.
Yeah, in fact, guys, we're right in the heart of Hollywood. We're right below Skybox, actually. And I gotta tell you, this is an area where if you come down at night, you probably have. You either have to pay $10 to park in one of the public lots, or you drive round and round looking for a spot like this one that I'm standing in on the street. And this app can prevent you from driving round and round the block. And it all starts with something that you drive right past and probably never even notice. That's amazing. What's a great app? It's called Parker. Oh, yeah, that's really cool. It's being tested in Hollywood, specifically on 286 metered parking spaces along Hollywood Boulevard between Vine and La Brea. Each now fitted with these sensors. 77 stores Vic Foster tried it out for us on foot, and within a couple of minutes, Parker took him to an open spot. And it comes up with where the spots are, whether there's 2 this way, 4 this way, and you click on that zone, and then it creates a route for you on your map. The sensors transmit a signal to receivers mounted up on streetlights. The information goes to a server in Texas, then back to your iPhone, all in about 2 minutes. There should be one right here around the corner, so let's make a right turn in here. Along with giving directions, Parker tells you if the meter takes credit cards, just doesn't guarantee
Okay, so I'll stop this. You get a sense of, and there's extensive information on this from news reports in New York and Asheville and so on. Let me show you the actual apps here. So this is now live. It's always dangerous to show something live, but it's 4:17 p.m. This is in the Hollywood area, and what it's showing you is the spots that are vacant this very second in the Hollywood area. That's the white spots. The spots that are occupied, these are the orange ones, and the ones with the V are the ones in violation. And we have this system now in over 12 cities around the U.S., including the Washington, D.C. metro system and so on. So to Mr. Park's point, it's not just the sensors. The sensor is just one piece of it. Streetline has built a range of applications on top. And let me show you the Parker system as well. Switch to the One here for a second. So this is the mobile enforcement system, Mr. Rosenthal. This is again showing you live. These numbers are what are the violations in this area at this very second. And so the police officers use an iPhone or we are on an Android phone as well, at the request of the mayor and Mr. Garcia.
Traffic officers.
Traffic officers, sorry. And so what this shows you is, okay, if you go here on Las Palmas Avenue and Hollywood Boulevard, right now, there's 2 meters in violation on that side of the street, A and B, and 2 meters in violation on this side, 31 and 34. And the officer can go in, they can say it's exempt because it's handicap parking or a city vehicle. They can go in and say it's not in violation, and so on. And this is the system that's been in play for a couple of years in Los Angeles. Now, if you look at the consumer side of this, and this is where Streetline has really shined, what we do here is the consumer goes in and looks at a range of different cities, what they're interested in. As you can see in our area here in Los Angeles, we've got both Hollywood and Studio City. So there are 214 spots available this very second, and now it's 213. You see it just changed. So there's one spot less available. The consumer goes in, clicks on this, up pops a range of open things. And as you can imagine, we actually do not send a person to a single spot. We'll have 60 people going to that same spot. And to the earlier question on, that spot will go. So what we did is, we came up with 3 pieces, less than 2, 2 plus, and 4 plus. Those are the 3 categories. So if a block has less than 2 spaces, you can still try and find something because somebody may just leave, but very unlikely. If you have a choice, go to the one with plus 4, you are absolutely guaranteed parking, and very good shot at 2 plus. This is being used now by tens of thousands of people in across the U.S. You can also go in and take a look at a whole range of policy information on timing and so on and so forth. You can do a search for it as well, and we started putting options on filters. We'll also add handicap parking, we'll add electric vehicle charging stations, etc. Once you actually, and by the way, we've got garages in here as well, and working with LA DOT, we've started to put in garages, and we'll get real-time data from the garages. Once you've actually done that, you can say park now, and the system drops a pin on where you are, and we're obviously on kind of the City Hall area here. And one additional piece, and it didn't come here, is of mobile payments. We have already pre-integrated with Park Mobile and Pay by Phone, and Park Mobile I think is going to be involved in this project, so you can go in and make a mobile payment through Parker for your meter, and even if you're out to dinner and etc. You can set a timer for yourself for a reminder. You can even make comments on this, and you can take a picture on where you are. So, range of additional capabilities. We'll be adding other capabilities as well. As a company, gentlemen, we received $15 million in financing about a month ago from including Bill Ford Motor Company. So we're clearly expanding this business very quickly, and would love the opportunity to continue our 3 years of work with LA.
Okay, thank you so much. And now I'd like to have the public comment card.
Mr. Chair, can I make a suggestion? On the activity, if would you be happy with a 1 minute plus public comment? Make their comments, and they need a little more time in 1 minute. That gathers us to get some business done in City Hall.
Anybody have any problem with that? If you feel you need to go more than a minute, you'll get more than a minute, okay? But Mr. Labange made a suggestion. We'll just see how the timing goes on it. Could we ask Daniel Carmerigo to come on up? Fred Garcia to come up? Chris, is it Slowham? Did I get that right? Chris and Jeff Lane. Start with you, sir.
Fred Garcia, Painters and Allied Trades. We're here today to address the issue of LA Express Park, a project that will ease traffic congestion, improve ease of parking downtown, and modernize parking meters, monitoring, and technology. As you likely know, we are the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, District Council 36, a labor union of more than 11,000 men and women in Southern California. Our members work in the finishing trade and include painting, drywall finishing, glazing, floor laying, trade show, and sign craft. District Council 36 provides our contractors with highly trained, skilled, safety-conscious workers who are prepared to meet the challenges of today's workplace. We are uncomfortable with the direction that ACS the recommended vendor for this project is heading and its selection of sub-vendors for LA Express project. Specifically, we are concerned about the problems associated with Streetline Network's ability to deliver on the project, given their most recently attempted deployment in San Francisco. Streetline defaulted on their contract and had to be replaced shortly before the project was to be online. It had the potential to jeopardize the success of the entire program. In the San Francisco project, Streetline Networks was retained to provide the in-street parking space monitoring system. Despite many months and numerous opportunities to deploy, they were simply unable. Their product was unable to meet the acceptable accuracy standards and their latency issues with the transmission of data, both of which will jeopardize motorist confidence in the system and create unnecessary parking ticket appeals. As workers in this arena, our concern is that we are backing people and projects that can get the job done. At this juncture, we are doubtful that Streetline Networks will be able to complete the job if selected. We recommend that the city take a very hard look into alternatives with experience in smart parking meter industry. And in closing, I would like to reference a letter all of you received from LA City Controller Grew regarding this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Sir?
If I may, Mr. Councilman.
Your name?
My name is Chris Slocum, and in the interest of time, I'm going to speak on behalf of Daniel Camargo, Scott Verplank, and Jeff Lane. We are all IBEW members, and we all work for Republic ITS, which is the Siemens business. We are currently partnering with Streetline, and we have been working for Streetline throughout the city of Los Angeles, projects in Hollywood, maintenance in Hollywood, and including the installation of over 150 sensors in Venice Beach in the last couple of days. Mr. Alicon mentioned earlier that we wanted to use the highest quality product, and I think that we are an intelligent transportation company. This is an intelligent transportation system, and I don't think you will get that quality using the Painters Union.
Okay, did the others want to speak as well?
He's speaking for him.
You're speaking
He's
for
their
them?
buddy.
Okay, who are you speaking for? Which folks? Jeff Lane?
Jeff Lane, Daniel Camargo.
I am, sir.
You're Jeff, okay, and
I'm Michael Verplank.
Michael, okay.
Could you tell us again who you represent?
I represent Republic ITS, which is Republic Intelligent Transportation Systems, and we are a Siemens business.
You say seamless?
Siemens.
Siemens.
Okay, is this IBEW workers?
We are all IBEW workers.
And who's Daniel Camargo? Okay, so I have all four of you here. Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay. Now I'm confused a little bit. Fred we did already, and we did Chris, now Jeff, now Daniel, and Michael, and now we're moving along. We have Myson Sue. Did I get that right? Come on up. Ken Voss. Okay.
I'm with Streetline. I'm available for questions if you have
Okay. Okay. All right. And then we have Zia. I already did it. Okay. No, we're cool. Okay, you're up.
Hi, good afternoon, council members, committee members. My name is Myung-Soo Seok. I'm a political consultant. I'm a principal at a firm called Sage Strategies that represents painters and allied trades, District Council 36. Our representative of the union talked about specifically the letter that you have from the painters union voicing our concerns. This really isn't an issue of whether painters workers are better workers versus IBEW workers and whatnot. We assume all union workers qualified who do the job will do a great job. It's really a question about the priorities of the cities and the right of the city, and especially the decision makers within the city, to make the best choice possible for the city of Los Angeles. In the original proposal, the contractor proposed 2 qualified vendors. And Richard, Councilmember Alicon have posed a lot of different questions about different levels of technology, different levels of success, past success. You have an article that we submitted from San Francisco Examiner that talks about two different issues: San Francisco Park, the contract, and also their sort of inaccuracy issue that they had in City of Sausalito. This is street line that we're talking about. I think City of LA deserves the best vendor and the best technology that they could get. As it is getting presented right now, ultimately the choice for that vendor is getting made by the awarded contractor, not the City of Los Angeles, not you, not anybody else. When asked whether the technology differential could be answered, there were no qualified answers that could be given to you. There are a lot of different questions. You don't know how Street Smart system works, whether their application is more accurate or not. There seems to be a lot of different questions that's still outstanding. As suggested by Councilmember Alarcon, we think the staff should do a little bit of homework, do a comparison, and come back and report back to you on their finding on the differentials between the two sub-vendors, if any. Again, this is a $30-some million contract, and also a contract that is supposed to serve as a demonstration for the bigger contracts and all the work that's going to be done in the rest of the city. How can you make any comparison? How can you do all that if the City of LA isn't able to do the real comparison that it needs? Right now, to say that it works in Hollywood, the Parker application is a good application for City of LA, how do you know if other applications and other technologies actually isn't better for City of LA? Right now, you have no way of making that.
Very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Wayne, you're up.
Hey, Mr. Clerk, is there a recycling bin in here, a blue one?
I'd like to get 2 minutes if I could.
In the hallway?
Because there's nobody here that's representing the schmucks like me that have to pay the parking, because none of you have to pay for parking, so.
I pay.
No, you get it. Anyway, Siemens. I remember Siemens being something of a reminder. If I'm not mistaken, I think Paul Koretz had a problem with Siemens because they did some business in Iran. I think you want to look at that, because I think the city had a problem with Siemens because of contracts in Iran with the Iranian government. I noticed the monitoring by this contract is going to an information flow in the state of Texas. How the hell does that stimulate the LA economy? I mean, we're stimulating the Texas economy. Haven't they already created more jobs than anywhere in America? And we're shipping out, my money goes into the meter and it goes to create jobs in Texas. What's that about? Then you have the IBEW doing something with the sensors and the painters union wanting to do something with the sensors. So they,
Another minute.
yeah, they have a thing, there's a thing called the city family. I think the city family is having a family feud. That's what it looks like to me. You have the IBEW and the painters unions that constitute the city family, and they seem to both disagree on what the technology is. Also, this man refers to a problem with RF interference. You have to shield cables when they're underneath ground, so if the city of San Francisco was allowing RF to leak through shielding underneath the city streets, you would actually be causing radiation cancer. San Francisco doesn't do that, so I don't buy that for a minute. This technology has a guinea pig. San Francisco's your guinea pig. Why don't you wait until they get the technology right? Once they get the technology right and you got it all on board, then come in and install it. But right now, you have untested technology with unknown variables and sensors and $4 a parking per hour. It's outrageous. Just say no to this. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Parks.
Yeah, I would move that we adopt the Transportation Department's report and recommendations.
I second it.
Okay.
I want to ask Mr. Sadati one question.
On this?
Mr. Sadati, Amir Sadati, you're an expert. You come to the table, you make the best decision for the city of Los Angeles. You have to follow the variety of ordinances and rules that the city has that applies to contracts. In this effort here, do you feel this is done correctly and in the proper spirit of the law of the city of Los Angeles?
The short answer is yes. We, as
Okay,
the
that's what you
Department of
gotta say.
Transportation, have done our due
Right.
diligence.
I got
for-
that. That's what I want to hear you stand and say that, as we move forward. If that's what it is, I'd have to support that.
One question from Mr. Parks.
Well, I just want to clarify one issue. Is this a recommendation from the department or the subcontractor, or is this a recommendation of the prime contractor as relates to the subcontractor?
The entire recommendation went through the Department of Transportation, through our general manager, through the Board of Transportation Commissioners, to the mayor, to the CAO, and the CAO's report is before you recommending DOT's recommendation.
Right.
DOT is recommending the prime and the sub.
No, it's approval of the prime. Jaime De La Vega again. It's approval of the prime with disclosure to the council on the selection of the subcontractor by ACS, which DOT has concurred at a technical level.
Thank you.
So this is selection of the prime.
Thank you.
Okay, before we move this, Mr. Correct, please.
Yeah, on that same question, did DOT do analysis of the two subcontractors, or did DOT basically just accept ACS's analysis?
DOT conducted independent analysis and evaluation.
And
ACS did as well, and they made their recommendation per the terms of the RFP, and we concurred.
And DOT separately looked closely at the San Francisco issue and determined that that wasn't a risk here?
Yes, that's correct.
Thanks.
Okay, with that in mind, before we vote, I want to make sure that we have, for the council, the response to the Wendy Gruhl letter.
Yes, we'll have that.
And any other insight that could suggest why, as Mr. Labange asked the question on the record, so that my colleagues who might ask as many questions as you just saw here happen also could happen. So we have a motion before us. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. Chair, may I interrupt? The recommendation number 3 is to approve the ordinance that would allow DOT to adjust the rates, which is part of this program. We now have, or the city clerk now has the council file and the draft ordinance, so we'd like to respectfully request that we schedule that in council at the same time so we can approve both. And that's council file 11-1379, which is the ordinance.
That's Friday?
Friday.
Yes.
And that'll be Friday, but make sure you answer any questions that you saw develop in here before the full council as well.
And may I make a chair
Of course you
question,
can. Yes.
and invite the controller or their designee to come and explain?
That would be a great idea.
yeah.
Contact their office and
Right.
see how far they want to go with that letter
Right.
and where they want to take it in the full council. But it is four votes here in favor of it. Appreciate it. Thank you all very
Thank you.
much for the interaction and the discussion. See you Friday. Now, we are to item number 7.
Yeah, we have item number 7 on the regular agenda, and item number 1 on the special are the same items. They were just, it was retitled for the special, so let me read that. It's the CAO's report relative to a contract with MV Transportation for the operation of dash transit routes in the central and south regions of LA and all citywide dial-a-ride services for a period of 5 years at a cost of not to exceed $118.3 million, and also a contract with Coach America for the operation of the transit service in the north region of LA for the period of 5 years at a total cost not to exceed $64.5 million.
Okay, before we go forward with this item, is there any other items where Mr. Park would be needed in the room? Because he's going to recuse himself from this one. Are we done?
We have one item on the special, which is the DOT report on extending the on-street car share pilot program, which we need to take action on because that expires in September.
Okay, so let's do that rather quickly right now, in respect to Mr. Parks.
If I can correct the title on that, it's DOT's report relative to just extending the term. It is not expanding the operational area, so I just wanted to clarify that for the record.
Appreciate that. Please give us a quick report on what this is before we take action. No. Can't do it without him, unless there's somebody else on staff that could.
Which number is that, Maria?
This is
Tamar's here, very well.
Number is this one?
special item number 2.
This one, too.
Okay, we're going to do special item number 2 first. And you probably didn't hear it out in the hall. Why don't you repeat what special item number 2 is again? Maria?
Oh, special item number 2 is a DOT report relative to extending the term of the on-street car share pilot program and related actions.
Okay, and we're going to do that, and then Mr. Parks going to accuse himself because of the last item he had.
We'll be quick. This is, would you like just a brief
Yes.
overview, just a quick overview? So we're before you as, this is, I believe, the third year, the car share program we started at UCLA, USC, the company that we agreed or did a letter of agreement with is Zipcar Inc. And last year we came through the Transportation Committee and the Council and asked that before we actually do a citywide program, we look at successes of this type of a program in a non-university setting. So Hollywood was chosen as one of the areas to extend the pilot program into that area. And since this program, we have seen very good, successful results. We've partnered with Zipcar, and they've been a good partner to the city. The people of Los Angeles do like the program, and Dan Grossman is here from Zipcar, and he can just give you a brief overview. But before you is the finding that we want to extend the original pilot for 1 more year, and the reason for that is so that staff has the time to prepare, evaluate a request for proposal back to this body, and then ultimately release that request for proposal and do a citywide share program. So in order to do that, we want to extend the pilot for 1 more year, not to exceed our existing limit of 40 vehicles, and in parallel, be able to do the RFP and come back to you with what that would look like, and then release it and obviously go through that competitive process. So with that, we're happy to answer a question. As I mentioned, Dan wants to just say a few words, and then we'll leave it for questions.
Yeah, Dan Grossman from Zipcar. I'll be very brief. I just want a quick update on the progress report on the program. The program is strong. Our latest survey indicates 86% of those respondents were able to get places they could not get before. 73% reported that they were able to postpone buying a car altogether. 71% report living less than 3 blocks from our Zipcar location, so that partnership in terms of selecting parking seems to have worked. There's still little room for some improvement. There are locations where at times, up to 25% of the time, the space is occupied by another vehicle. Although we're confident as we continue to work with the city that's going to decrease. I do want to mention and give a special thanks to Sergeant Kimmy Porter and Deputy Chief Christine Mata. They provide a phenomenal service in helping us work through the enforcement process. Since 2010, we've grown membership 95%. In 10 out of the last 12 months.
95, is that like 95 people to 95 more people, or how many, what's raw numbers?
A little under 1,000 total members.
That's good, that's good, and you're going to grow. I'm good, if you're good, Mr. Rosendahl. All right, quick question.
Okay, I still want Venice and Wynwood Circle to be one of them going on. I know you're not going to expand it at this point. You've done it to Hollywood, which is great, and of course, Paul's got his UCLA covered with it, so he's happy. Mr. Parks, any comments or questions? Good job. Okay, so good job on that. Please. Okay, well, we look forward to expanding it in other places. I've heard nothing but good things about what you guys have been doing.
Thank you.
I congratulate you on it. We have a motion from Mr. Labange to move forward. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, unanimous. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate it.
Oh, if there were... I think as part of the recommendation, we wanted to have the DOT prepare and present the request for proposal before they issue that.
Fine. Mr. Parks.
Is that okay?
I can't, I have to recuse myself on the next item, but there's 2 issues I'd ask the committee to look in with some depth. One is the issue of current lawsuit with one of the vendors that is before us, and that has a lawsuit against the city. And we've had somewhat of a pattern of looking closely at vendors who are suing us at the same time we're talking about a new contract. And the second issue is that we have gotten information that and we can't figure it out at this time between one or two or maybe three vendors that during the process of them having the RFP, somebody disconnected the catalytic converters, and it came to the attention of DOT, and some way they got fixed, but there was not a lot of notice to this committee or the city. Last time I checked, those would be major violations of the environmental issue, and so those are things I'd ask you to look into.
Okay, do we have that now? We have that on the record. This is special item number 1. Is that what it is?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Parks. We have a quorum, but Mr. Parks has left and Mr. Alarcon has not returned. Okay. So we're 3 folks here in the room. Okay. And we have a card for this, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. You want to come up and speak real quickly, or do you want to wait until after their presentation? I'll go. Okay, great.
All right. Basically, again, with Dash service, the doubling of the fees to half a dollar from 25 to 35 to half a dollar, they should reduce it at least in the downtown area where Chinatown is, where all the retirees and people downtown who patronize all of the lunching services and breakfast, that it go back to 25 cents. Because what it does is it allows people to use public transit, ditch their cars, and move around the city. But when you raise it to half a dollar, and it's probably going to be going up more than that in the coming years, you're de-incentivizing people to do that. And I've seen a noticeable drop in ridership since this has happened, as opposed to before you could hardly get a seat on these Dash buses. And the whole thing with everything here today is that everything is going up, and nobody's income is going up, and it's squeezing everybody to death.
Some people's income is going up.
Yeah, you guys, yeah.
Not us. This ain't a rich deal. We got 2 other public comment cards. Delia Lennox, I think, and that could be Aaron Green. Do I see those 2? Come on up. It's on the same item. It's called item 7, but item 1 and 7 are combined. Okay, you go first, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman, and thanks for having us here today. My name is Delata Lanois. I am the president and co-owner of SMS Transportation. We are the small local business partner of Veolia Transportation, and we had the opportunity of bidding with them on this contract with the city. And I just wanted to say that this is really the only way that our company would be included in an opportunity like this, since we are a small company. We don't have the resources to bid alone. And we provide services in the County of Los Angeles, and specifically in some of those areas outlined in the RFP, to elderly, disabled, and that's it. And we have been providing these services for the last 12 years. We would like to be given an opportunity to become a part of this very, very much needed service to the City of Los Angeles and its residents.
Thank you very much for your comments. Sir.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, Councilmember Koretz, thank you. I know it's been a long day. My name is Aaron Green. I represent Afriat Consulting Group on behalf of MV Transportation, and I just want to thank the staff for their diligent work on this RFP. I know it's been a long time coming, and it's a great opportunity for the City of Los Angeles. We would like to strongly request and recommend that the committee sends this RFP to council as soon as possible. The forwarding of this RFP is going to save the city a little over $18 million. And by moving this forward today and helping the city organize these services in a way that it hasn't done before, it's really been a revolutionary way of awarding these contracts as opposed to piecemealing them out. It's a great opportunity for the city. We're pleased to be a part of it. We're really thankful for staff's work, and we support the recommendation wholeheartedly. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. Please, tell us what it is and what Mr. Parks said as he walked out, and help me understand that as well.
Oh, and I'm also here to answer any questions, as are a number of representatives from MV, should you have any questions.
Great, thank you. What was Mr. Parks talking about?
Jim Lefton with the Department of Transportation. Mr. Parks raised two issues. The first issue was discussed in the LA DOT report. We mentioned that MV Transportation, which is one of the firms that we're recommending as part of this report, had filed a suit against the city. It's a issue involving interpretation of some older transit contracts that we had with them dealing with fuel reimbursement costs. I want to bring to the attention of the committee that the department has been working closely with the city attorney's office and MV in an attempt to resolve this matter. And earlier this week, a settlement agreement was signed by both the city attorney and MV, in which MV will be dismissing the case against the city. So that really is no longer an issue for the city.
Well, you will share that with Mr. Parks in another venue?
Yes.
And what was the second question or point?
Second issue was an issue that came up about a year ago. We were notified by Veolia Transportation that I believe one of their mechanics had been involved in potentially tampering with some of the catalytic converters around the vehicles, and they brought that to our attention. And they did, I think he did an investigation of a portion of their fleet and found that a number of the catalytic converters were at a minimum non-functioning. And the department at that time did an immediate full inspection of the entire Dash fleet, and we found that about half of the fleet had catalytic converters that were no longer operating properly. It's probable that a significant portion of those were non-functioning just because they had not been replaced after they have materials inside the device that start to break up over time, and then at that point, it's appropriate to replace it with a new catalytic converter. The bottom line is we worked with all three of our existing contractors. We worked closely with the city attorney's office. We worked closely with the California Air Resources Board. The bottom line is that the contractors purchased and installed brand new catalytic converters on all the vehicles where we found that there were improperly functioning catalytic converters. MV and First Transit actually voluntarily offered to pay a portion of the cost for the catalytic converters on a couple of the contracts that Veolia was operating that they'd assumed from these contractors previously. So we were able to work cooperatively with all of our contractors with the assistance of the city attorney to resolve the situation. All the catalytic converters have been replaced, and moving forward, the department has incorporated a more thorough inspection of the catalytic converters, both in this RFP and also our current investigation processes.
Okay, would you make sure you share that with Mr. Parks as well?
Yes, I will.
Because this was all news to me, what he said, and maybe he'll feel he doesn't need to recuse himself. I don't understand.
We'll offer to meet with his office and discuss this more thoroughly.
Very good. Thank you. Now, tell us what we're doing here.
Angela Berman, CAO. The CAO report recommends approval of two proposed contracts for transit service operation. Last year, the Department of Transportation initiated a comprehensive competitive process requesting proposals for the operation of various combinations of transit services or standalone services, including the Commuter Express program, most of the Dash program, and the City Ride program. Through the extensive evaluation process, MV Transportation was selected for operation of transit services in the central and south regions of Los Angeles, and Coach America was selected for services in the north region. It's proposed that these contracts be executed for a period of 5 years at a combined total cost not to exceed $182.8 million over the 5-year period. It should be noted that this cost is significantly lower than projections that we've made in prior years for the same services over the same period of time. And it's believed that this decrease in cost is a result of the combined consolidated RFP, or the consolidated services available in the RFP. Funding for the operation of these transit services is funded through, or is available through the city's Proposition A adopted budget, and funding is available for this fiscal year. Future years of this contract will be provided funding through the adopted budget process.
Let me do some quick questions, okay, just for the record. One of the goals of this RFP was to either minimize cost or achieve savings, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
And did we?
Yes, we did. We estimated, as Angela mentioned, approximately an $18 million cost savings over the life of the contract compared to our current costs.
Any anticipated savings is 18 million, and this is Prop A, so it's not general fund money.
Prop A, correct.
That was comments. From the public's perspective, service levels will remain the same?
Yes, there's no reduction in service levels.
What are the technologies, what new technologies will be implemented during the course of this contract?
There's a number of different technologies. I think one of the most prominent is the technology that we've already introduced in the downtown area. It's a web-based system that it has two key advantages from the operations perspective. It allows the dispatchers to see where the vehicles are on a screen, so they can better dispatch those vehicles and avoid bunching of vehicles that you see sometimes on the dash vehicles, as well as for our commuter vehicles. And then from the user's perspective, it allows you to use your cell phone or go online and basically find out when your bus is going to be arriving at the stop. So you can tell if the bus is going to be here in a few minutes, you can run down and wait for it. So it's something that MTA is going to be rolling out on some of its buses as well. But we've already rolled it out in downtown. It's been very successful, and we're looking to roll that out on our Dash and Commuter Express service.
Great. My last question is, how will the department manage the changeover of so many transit services to different contractors? Do you anticipate any service impacts?
We've done this for many, many years. One of the advantages of this particular recommendation is that MV is the incumbent operator for a good part of the existing services in the RFP, so that will minimize the transition. We do have one new operator, Coach America, which would take over one of the three regions, and we're pleased to bring a new operator into the fold and give them some additional experience that adds competition down the road, which should help to bring costs down in the future.
Colleagues, questions, comments?
The other thing I want to say, James, are there any trolleys in this one?
There's no trolleys involved in this service, no.
I know. With any of the trolleys, I want open air on the back end, like you see in San Francisco. San Francisco's a great city, and they have trolleys that are wheeled trolleys, but it's open air. Ours are a box, and it takes the fun away. I like fun.
I might say, you know, it's 5 to 5, people are pretty tired, but Tom always gets a smile out of everyone in the room. No matter where I go, when I watch him do it, I look around the room and I always get that
He brings
positive.
joy to the world, that's
You're a positive spirit. We have a recommendation to move forward, Mr. Koretz?
Yeah, I think this is a great proposal with a substantial savings, and I'd move the item.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay, so done, unanimously. Thank you so much for that. Okay, are we done? We're done. Unless there's any other public comment of any kind whatsoever, the meeting is adjourned. Transportation Committee of